Hey guys, Captain Henson here. So, in today's video, I'll be reviewing Light of the Jedi and talking a bit about the Great Jedi Rescue. So, Light of the Jedi is the first novel of the High Republic era and the first major story, because we had a short story in Insider 199, I think. So, before getting into that, as you guys should already know, I have been a staunch supporter of the High Republic since we got the formal announcement of it being the High Republic. Even making a video talking about how most of the criticisms I was hearing weren't valid criticisms. Not really. Just people wanting it to fail and looking at things way too fucking politically. But here we are. We got, the first three books out. You have several videos about people who, as far as I'm aware, haven't even picked up the book, let alone opened it. Talking about how the High Republic is failing, how dead in the water, etc., etc. As someone who has read at least the first book, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, my hype was not misplaced. I love this book. And this book has made me more excited about the High Republic era than I was before. So, what's the story? Well, as we already knew before going into it, this book shows us the jumping off, or the starting point for this era. Well, okay. The Great Disaster, which is the focus of the first third of the book, happens. It sets events into motion. It brings the Nile more into the limelight for the Republic. The Republic Okay, so scratch that. So basically, the book opens, the first third is about the Great Disaster. And once that situation is handled, we then transition into trying to figure out what the hell happened. And this is where we get the introduction of the Nile. Again, an organization and group, or organization and characters we already knew about before heading into it. But we get to know more about them, obviously. We go through their exact hierarchy, how they operate as a group. And they're essentially marauders. Again, already knew that. So then it becomes about the Nile having to change their ways. One of the higher ups of the group, Marchian Rowe, wants to change the group into something that actually means or give the group actual meaning rather than just being marauders. And in terms of the Jedi cast, we have the likes of Avar Kriss, Elzar, Bell, Great Storm. There isn't a single character that I hate in this. And quite frankly, I found myself invested in everyone. Which I can't remember the last time that happening in a new canon story. I do think the book did suffer at the first act, dealing with the Great Disaster, because we are introduced to practically everyone in that in the first third. And it constantly bounces between characters. It was very hard to remember anybody's names or grow attached to many of them. But once we get into the second act, and we spend more time on these characters. Now we still bounce between different groups and different characters, but now it felt like we were getting to spend more time with them. Now that there wasn't a disaster happening, we could really see these characters, how they act around each other, how they act in situations that isn't, dire. Before we get closer and eventually into the third act, where the Republic has to face off against at least a part of the Nile, led by Kassev. This book, in my opinion, does a really good job at setting up future plot threads and the era as a whole. Like, if I was to recommend this era to anyone, I would tell them start with this novel. It sets up the era, sets up a bunch of characters. Yeah, it's a good intro story. And The Great Jedi Rescue is essentially just a kiddie adaptation of the Great Disaster segment. Now, would I recommend that? I would say yes. Because it gives us, it shows us what these characters look like. Now, you could look at the concept art, and this is a more cartoony art style. But I'd say if you're reading the novel, or rereading the novel, it's good to just have this on hand. Just so you can, flip to a page, see, oh, this is what Great Storm looks like. Okay. So, I apologize if my thoughts were all over the place. Point is, if you had any qualms about getting into this era, I don't think there's any reason to worry. I still have to read Into the Dark in a test of courage. But so far, I'm not worried. If they can do what I hope they're doing and make this canon feel cohesive like the EU did, and just keep that ball rolling, then I think the new canon can improve. I think what we have here, a story that actually matters, a story that actually has some weight and consequence to the greater canon. Mind fucking blown. What a concept. Or I should say a story that isn't a movie or show. I hope to God that this trend continues with everything else. Do I think, because we have this, do I think the new canon will ever get to the quality of the EU? No. Those first 5 to 6 years did a number on the new canon. It is... I think in a pre-episode 1 and post-episode 9 eras, it can definitely be salvaged. But I'd say overall, they can certainly try. I will not fault them for trying, and I will support them trying. But like I said, I'm only gonna get the new canon stuff that interests me. The High Republic has interested me since day one. I will support them. And yeah, I will say this. Playing through SWOTOR now and being a subscriber now, there are specific eras in Star Wars where your mind just is drawn to because of just how interesting it is. The Old Republic and even the Dawn of the Jedi eras in the EU were really fucking interesting. I'm a sucker who loves backstory, getting explanations for things. And I'm also a guy who loves seeing this universe, how this universe has evolved from, the Jedi aren't using lightsabers and they're using fucking battery packs, using lightsabers. Or to look at things in broad strokes. Like, the events of Dawn of the Jedi lead into KOTOR, the events of KOTOR lead into SWOTOR, etc., etc. Looking at things in a broad sort of way and seeing how, oh my god, it actually feels like this history. It has history. The High Republic era for me so far is giving me an era that interests me. Now, something I should say, and we already knew this before going into it. This was one of the first things we learned about it when the formal announcement. They only recently started utilizing hyperspace lanes, like around here. And so it makes you wonder how, or what do the events of the Great Sith War or the Mandalorian Wars look like without those hyperspace lanes? It's something interesting to explore. Now, I should also say the Great Sith War is referenced here. And they do reference battle or war with the Mandalorians that happened centuries ago, or centuries past. Seeing what the Old Republic era looks like in the new canon is going to be interesting. Now, I guess good segue into how does this compare to the Old Republic era of the EU? Well, right now it's unfair to compare the two, given how this era just started and being a lot closer to the prequels than the majority of Old Republic content. Honestly, I like them both. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. Yeah, the shit with hyperspace in here is weird, but there is a workaround. I'm sure there's some way to explain it. We'll just have to see. For the first time in a long time, I'm excited to talk about the canon, or the greater canon, when it comes to new canon, because yeah, The Mandalorian has had me excited, still has me excited, but I mean, that's pretty much on the same level as the films. If they're gonna use books, comics, and games to expand this canon, then I should be excited about that. It's a novel concept, I know. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like they're actually giving a damn. Having shit that actually matters. Like giving non-book and comic fans, something to look at. I just had a conversation with my friend Donnie who said he knows a few people who have either not picked up a Star Wars book in a long time or just starting to get into Star Wars, picking these books up. Now, I haven't looked at the numbers myself, so I don't know if it's true that the High Republic is failing. I think it's bullshit. But whatever, those people just want Disney to fail anyways. I should say Disney Star Wars specifically to fail. Pick up this book. If you love Star Wars, you're into the new canon, or hell, even if you're into the EU, I do think this calls back to how the EU, at least to me, makes me feel. You know, getting into this universe that is so beyond our, reality. Getting to see characters that I'm invested in, exploring this universe. Actually getting invested in characters. The High Republic matters. Which is more than I can say for most of the new canon. Hopefully they can keep this going, and I think they will. So, what do you all think? Are you keeping up with the High Republic? In terms of the comics for me, I'll wait for the trades. But yeah. Have you read Light of the Jedi? What do you think? Do you think it was a good start to the era? Let me know in the comments section below. Until next time, this is Captain Henson, signing off.